I want you to picture something. You are sitting in traffic.
Okay.
It is raining. You are looking at your phone and you are scrolling through the same 3 apps you always scroll through.
The usual rotation.
Right, the usual rotation. And suddenly you get the sinking feeling in your stomach. It is not sadness exactly. It is boredom.
Yeah.
But like a cosmic boredom.
Oh, wow. Cosmic boredom.
Yeah, you start wondering, is this it? Is this the whole show?
That feeling that you are just a cog in a machine that has been running for a million years.
Exactly. Because we have all this tech, right? We have AI, we have Mars rovers, we have endless entertainment on demand. But deep down, are we just doing the exact same thing our great-grandparents did?
Which is struggling, aging, and then checking out.
Yeah.
It is the classic existential crisis.
Yeah.
You were touching on the difference between novelty and newness. Like, we have new gadgets, but do we actually have a new human experience? Or is the machinery of life just a loop on repeat?
A loop on repeat. That is the perfect entry point for what we are unpacking today on this deep dive. Because we have some source material today that is, well, it is intense.
It really is.
It is a spiritual text, and the title is literally Throw Off the Shackles of Earth and Soar to the Glory of Heaven.
It does not exactly hide its intentions with a title like that.
No, it is not subtle at all. And I will be honest, when I first read that title, I thought, okay, here comes a standard religious tract.
Yeah.
But as I got into it, I realized it is actually structured more like a philosophical diagnosis of the human condition.
Yes.
It is arguing that there are 2 distinct species of life available to us.
2 entirely different modes of existence.
Yeah. So you can live the life of the flesh, which the text basically compares to being a worm crawling in the dirt. Or you can live the life of the spirit, which is the eagle soaring in the sky.
Worms and eagles. It is a very stark binary. And I think what makes this text so fascinating to analyze is that it claims the worm life, that crawling, dirt-eating existence is not a punishment. It is just our default factory setting.
Which is the scary part. So our mission today is to really get our hands dirty with this text. We are going to look at why it thinks being human is essentially a form of slavery.
Which is a heavy claim.
Very heavy. And then we will look at the specific mechanism it proposes for breaking out of that slavery. And I want to warn you, the listener, right up front, this is not just a message of, think positive thoughts.
Now, the solution the source proposes is pretty radical.
Yeah.
It requires a fundamental change in identity, not just a change in behavior.
So let's start with the bad news. The diagnosis.
The shackles.
Right. The text kicks off with this concept of life's limitations and repetition. It asserts right out of the gate that humans are finite beings.
Which seems obvious, right? I mean, we are not infinite. We have boundaries. We have expiration dates. But the text frames this finitude as the root of a cycle. Because we are finite, we are stuck repeating the same patterns over and over.
It actually says we are repeating the experiences of previous generations, and then it drops this line that really stopped me. It says, in other words, there is nothing new. And now, hold on. I have to push back on that a little bit. I mean, my great-grandfather didn't have the internet. He didn't have a smartphone or antibiotics. Surely something is new, right?
Technologically, yes, absolutely. But the text is echoing the sentiment of Ecclesiastes here.
Yeah.
The idea that there is nothing new under the sun. Think about the emotional and biological reality of your life.
Okay.
You fall in love, you get your heart broken, you worry about your kids, you get sick, you fear death. Did your great-grandfather feel those exact same things?
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
That is the argument the text is making. The scenery changes. Maybe we ride in electric cars instead of horse-drawn carriages. But the actual plot of the movie is exactly the same. We are replaying a script that was written thousands of years ago.
Okay, so we are just actors in a rerun.
Basically.
That is humbling.
It is worse than humbling. The text calls it shackles. It identifies 4 specific shackles that bind every single human being, regardless of how rich or modern they are.
And those are birth, aging, illness, and death.
The big 4.
The big 4. Now, usually we group 3 of those as bad things. Aging, illness, death. Nobody wants those. But birth. The text lists birth as a shackle.
Yes, it does.
That seems so counterintuitive to me. Isn't birth supposed to be a miracle, like a beautiful new beginning?
In a conventional sense, sure. But in the context of this specific argument, no. Birth is the entry point into the trap.
It's a trap.
Think of it like a conveyor belt. The moment you are placed on the belt, which is birth, you are locked into a trajectory, and that trajectory leads inevitably to the crusher at the end of the line.
Wow. That is incredibly bleak.
It is bleak. The text refers to these things as unavoidable tasks.
Tasks, like I have to take out the trash and I have to age.
Exactly. It completely strips the romance away from biology. It frames your physical existence not as a gift, but as a slavery. If you are born of the flesh, you are legally bound to the laws of decay.
You have to maintain the machine.
Right. You have to maintain this body. You feed it, watch it wrinkle, and eventually you have to watch it fail. You are a slave to maintenance.
I feel that. Honestly, sometimes just the act of figuring out what to eat for dinner every single night for the rest of my life feels like a shackle.
And that is the worm perspective the text is talking about. You are head down, just dealing with the friction of daily survival.
But is it really fair to call it slavery? I mean, we have moments of joy, don't we? We have great food, we see beautiful sunsets, we have art. Is the text saying all of that is just pointless?
I don't think it is saying it is pointless, but it is saying it is subordinate. It is saying that no matter how good the sunset is, you are still on that conveyor belt toward death. The joy is fleeting, the decay is structural.
Okay, I see. So it is really establishing the severe reality of the problem.
Yeah, right. And functionally, within the logic of the source material, it has to make the current situation look bleak.
Why?
Because if you are comfortable in the dirt, if you think being a worm is fine, then you have no incentive to try to fly. The text is trying to create a demand for a completely different kind of existence.
The classic sales pitch. You have a problem you didn't even know you had.
Exactly.
So let's look at the solution, because the text pivots right here. It says, however, in God, we can live a new life.
This is the move from the earthly reality to the heavenly reality. And notice how it defines this new life.
Oh, so.
Well, it doesn't describe it with streets of gold or playing harps in the clouds. It describes it by what is missing.
Oh, yeah, I have the list here from the source. It says, in this new world, there are no tears, no death, no mourning, no crying, and no pain.
It is the exact inverse of the shackles. If the shackles are illness and death, the new life is the complete absence of those vulnerabilities.
So it is a state of being where the laws of entropy, the laws that say everything must eventually fall apart, just don't apply anymore. Precisely.
That sounds great. I mean, who doesn't want that? But this is where I usually get a little skeptical with these texts.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like wish fulfillment. You know, don't worry, when you die, it all gets better.
But the text gets really specific about how this actually happens. It is not just a vague promise of being a good person and getting a reward. There is a very specific mechanism.
Yes, and I think this is the most technical part of our deep dive today. The text outlines a two-step process. Step 1, engraving the truth of Jesus Christ into the heart. And step 2, receiving the forgiveness of sins.
Yes.
Can we stop on that word, engrave, for a second? Engrave the truth. Why use that specific word? Why not just say, learn the truth or believe the truth?
It is a crucial distinction in the text. Think about how we operate in the modern world. We consume information constantly. You read an article, you listen to a deep dive, you nod your head.
Right, it goes in one ear and out the other.
Exactly. It is like writing in pencil on a sticky note. It is temporary. It can be blown away by the next distraction.
Or just erased entirely. Right. But engraving, think about a stonemason. To engrave something into stone, you have to chip away the existing material.
You are permanently altering the structure of the stone itself.
Yes. It is not an addition. It is a fundamental structural change.
So the text is suggesting that this truth needs to be etched into you so deeply that it changes your actual composition.
That is the implication. And implied in that process is pain, or at least a lot of effort. You cannot engrave something casually while you're watching TV. It requires an intense, focused internalization.
It makes sense.
The text suggests that unless the truth is engraved, unless it becomes the core of your operating system, it simply cannot override the shackles of death.
It is almost like rewriting your genetic code.
That is a great analogy. Biology says you will die. The engraved truth says you will live. It is a complete code override.
And that connects directly to the second part of the mechanism, the forgiveness of sins. Now, in a normal, everyday, secular sense, we usually think of forgiveness as an apology, like, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings.
Right.
But in the context of this text, it feels more, I don't know, it feels more legal.
It is legal. Think of sin in this text, not just as doing bad things, but as the actual cause of the shackles.
The root cause.
Yes. The text implies a strict cause and effect relationship. Sin leads to death. It is essentially a contractual obligation. So, to stop the death part, you have to break the contract.
And that is what forgiveness is doing here.
Exactly. It is not just an emotional release. It is a legal cancellation of the debt that binds you to the grave.
Okay, so if you do these things, if you engrave the truth and you get the debt canceled, the text says you undergo a major shift. And this is the part I really had to read a few times to wrap my head around.
The identity shift.
Yeah. It says you change from being a son of man to a son of God.
This is the absolute core of the argument the text is making.
Sons of men versus sons of God. Is this just poetic language? Or does the text mean something very specific by this?
It is defining your lineage. If you are a son of man, your father is Adam. Your heritage is dust. You inherit everything that comes with that bloodline. Weakness, aging, being bound by time.
You are a subject of the physical world.
Right, and sons of God.
Yeah, what does that practically mean in this framework?
Think of it like citizenship,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even diplomatic immunity. Imagine you were born in a country with a strict, brutal caste system. You are destined to work in the mines until your body breaks. That is the son of man reality.
Okay, I am with you.
But then, the king of that country adopts you.
Ah.
Suddenly, you have a completely new status. You are a son of God. The laws that applied to you when you were in the mine, the law that says you must work until you die, those laws no longer apply to you. You have authority, as the text says.
Authority. That is a really strong word to use.
It is very intentional. A subject obeys the laws.
Yeah.
An heir has authority over them. The text says this new status gives you the power to actually overcome the world.
So it's not just about going to a better place after you die.
No, it is that you become a different kind of being entirely. You are upgrading your species.
But here's the kicker for me. The text says this transformation is available to, quote, whosoever. It doesn't seem to care at all about your resume.
That is the democratization of the ego life. It is not reserved for the intellectuals or the wealthy or even the morally perfect. It is reserved for those who simply receive and embrace the truth.
It is an open door.
It is an open door, but, and this is a huge but, you still have to choose to walk through it.
Which brings us perfectly to the visual that really anchors this entire text. The worm and the eagle, we have been kind of dancing around it, but let's really look at why this specific metaphor works so well for the author's argument.
It ultimately comes down to a contrast between friction and flow.
Break that down for me.
Okay, picture the worm. It is belly to the earth. In order to move forward, it literally has to fight the ground. It is in a state of constant friction, and its perspective is absolute zero.
It just sees dirt.
Dirt, maybe a blade of grass, a pebble. It has absolutely no idea what is happening 5 feet away. It is vulnerable, it is incredibly slow, and it is entirely bound by the terrain it sits on.
And that represents the son of men life, just grinding, just trying to get through the day, fighting the friction of life.
Precisely. Now look at the eagle. The eagle does not fight the ground. It leaves the ground.
It abandons it.
It uses the air currents, the wind, to soar. The very thing that would blow a worm away is exactly what the eagle uses to rise higher. It transforms the harsh environment into fuel for flight.
And the perspective changes completely.
Right. The eagle sees the storm coming from miles away. It sees the entire landscape
It is a position of absolute dominance.
and glory. Remember the title of the text, Soar to the glory of heaven. No one looks at a worm crawling in the mud and thinks, wow, what glory. They think, that is fish bait.
Yeah.
But an eagle naturally commands respect. The text is arguing that we are settling for being bait when we actually have the potential to command the sky.
But the text uses a very aggressive verb when talking about this transition. It says, throw off the shackles, abandon our worm-like lives.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like a gentle, gradual transition. It sounds violent, like you have to forcefully rip something off of yourself.
That is because the worm life is sticky. We are deeply attached to our misery. We are attached to our daily routines. We actually find comfort in the dirt simply because it is what we know. It is familiar.
Better the devil you know, right?
Exactly. To throw off the shackles means you have to admit that your current way of operating is fundamentally broken. You have to look at your life, even the supposedly good parts of your life, and say, this is just crawling. I want to fly.
That requires a massive ego death.
It does. You have to admit you are a worm before you can ever become an eagle.
That is the really hard part, admitting you are a worm, because most of us walking around think we are at least, I don't know, a squirrel, maybe a clever cat.
We love to think we are sophisticated mammals. We build skyscrapers. We go to space. But the text is ruthless in its assessment. It says you have two choices, earth or heaven, dirt or sky, death or life. You have to pick one.
It really is a stark binary choice. There is no middle ground in the source material. So just to recap the journey this text takes the reader on, it starts by holding up a mirror and saying, look, you are stuck in a loop, you are getting older, you are just repeating history, and eventually you will die.
That is the diagnosis of the shackle.
Then it offers the specific mechanism out, engraving the truth, not just reading it casually, but burning it into your core to override your biological code.
The key to unlocking the cage.
And finally, the ultimate transformation. You stop identifying as a temporary, dirt-bound creature, and you start identifying as an eternal heir with actual authority.
Moving from friction to flight.
It is a lot to process. It is a very dense philosophical argument, but I want to go back to one thing we touched on near the beginning for our final thought today. The idea from Ecclesiastes that there is nothing new under the sun.
The inescapable loop of human history.
Because we are so obsessed with newness, right? I mean, I check my phone every 10 minutes hoping for something new, a new text, new news, new trends.
We are addicted to novelty because, as you said earlier, we are experiencing cosmic boredom with our reality.
Exactly. But the source argues that none of that stuff, the phones, the cars, the technology, none of it is actually new in a fundamental sense. It is just repainted scenery for the exact same worm life.
Right.
So here is the provocative thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today. If the text is right, and there is truly nothing new possible within the closed loop of the human system,
Okay.
does that mean that true novelty, something actually fundamentally different, can only come from outside of us?
That is the ultimate question this text poses. Can we innovate our way out of the human condition? Can we invent a pill that fixes the soul and stops death? Or do we require an intervention from a completely different plane of reality?
The source material clearly says we need the intervention. We need the eagle to come down and show the worm how to fly, because the worm is never going to figure it out on its own down in the dirt.
It is a very humbling thought. But if you accept the premise, it is also an incredibly hopeful one. It means the solution to the existential dread is already there. We just have to look up.
I think I'm going to look at the sky a little bit differently today.
And maybe look at the dirt a little differently, too.
Definitely. Thank you for diving deep with us today. Whether you are feeling like you are crawling through the dirt or soaring through the air right now, we hope this conversation gave you a new perspective on the view.
See you next time.